Hi, and welcome back. Today we are going to pull back the curtain on one of the most fascinating figures in literary history. That person was the author of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Alice Through the Looking Glass. This was a person who crafted a world of fantastical logic and deep spiritual symbolism. And that person was Charles Lutwidge Dodgson, better known as his pen name of Lewis Carroll. Carroll was a mathematician, a deacon, a photographer, and a storyteller who created very whimsical tales to entertain his two nieces while on a holiday cruise together. Or was there something more to Carroll and his story? Today I want to reveal a deeper layer, a hidden wisdom embedded in his words, in his motivations, and even his relationship with alchemy and esoteric thought. Lewis was a man of dualities. He was considered an academic, mathematician, and a person of logic. Yet at the same time, Carroll was a master of nonsense, wordplay, and imagination. Carroll taught mathematics at the Christ Church of Oxford and was deeply immersed in the intellectual world. Yet when we look closer at his works, especially at Alice, we see something far more profound than just the same creation of a fanciful tale. Carroll was an alchemist of words, weaving logic and absurdity together to create a magical world where perception, reason, realities were constantly everything was shifting. But it's not just the nonsense of Wonderland that's meaningful. It's the hidden logic beneath it, the structure that mirrors a deeper spiritual journey. See, Carroll was fascinated by paradoxes that lie between logic and chaos. He was a man who spent his entire life solving equations and studying the nature of reason. But he was also one of the best people to understand that beneath order lies a deeper, more mysterious truth, and that truth is more times than not swirled in a magnificent cloak of chaos and magical bewilderment. Alice, the character, the story, the world, is an allegory for the alchemical journey. In alchemy, the first step is dissolution, breaking down the old so something new can emerge. In Alice, we see this constantly. The world she enters is disorienting. It's illogical, and sometimes it's even downright frightening. But that chaos is not meaningless. It is the first stage of transformation. Wonderland is the negro stage, the purification stage in alchemical terms. This is the place where everything is broken down. It's broken down to its bare essence. That is to make way for something more exquisite and more creative. Just like the alchemist who dissolves the base elements to create gold, Alice is asked to confront her reality, to navigate this bizarre wonderland world, and to emerge from it transformed. Let's not forget the pure statement made by the Cheshire Cat, that brilliant philosophical feline who tells Alice, "We're all mad here." What a perfect reflection of the alchemist's paradox. In alchemy, contradictions are not feared, they are embraced. In Wonderland, logic breaks down, but in this very breakdown, Alice finds the truth for who she is. This was, and still is, remains, Carroll's secret message. The world doesn't need to be perfect to be understood. It can be chaotic, it can be irrational, it can even be absurd. Because there is wisdom in this type of madness. And Alice's journey through Wonderland is a journey of spiritual awakening from understanding every type of madness. She is constantly transforming. She often questions herself and certainly doubts who she is and who is she meant to be. Does that sound familiar? That's because this is the process. This is the very thing that alchemists have been speaking about for centuries, the transmutation of the self, from ignorance to knowledge, from base to gold, from illusion to reality. This is the quote-quote formula that facilitates the pure transformation of ourself. But why Alice? Why choose a young girl to go on this journey of alchemical transformation? Carroll picked a female protagonist in an era where women were constrained by society's expectations. Carroll's decision to make Alice the protagonist was revolutionary and brilliant. Alice, as a female character, was not simply a passive observer. She was the questioner. She was the challenger, and Alice was the seeker of knowledge by defying authority and by defining the very reality she was being placed in. In a world where women were often seen as fragile or limited, Carroll gave us a heroine who wasn't afraid to challenge the status quo. She didn't fit the model of a docile, obedient girl. By birthing Alice, Carroll invited his readers, especially young girls, to step beyond the boundaries of society and everything that they had set for them. Alice was a beacon of transformation, a light for those who were beginning to see that they too could push the limits of what was being expected. Now let's again pause for just a minute and consider that Carroll himself was a man of great intellect. He had depth. He was one who would understand the esoteric currents of his time. While there's no direct evidence that he was an alchemist in the formal sense of the words, his work often resonated deeply with alchemical ideas. His choice to use a female protagonist in a world filled with contradiction speaks to the burgeoning energies of feminine power that were starting to rise and take hold during the Victorian era. Was Carroll perhaps reflecting the spiritual awakening that was beginning to stir in the hearts of women? Was he, in his own way, saying to his nieces and to the world that women too could undertake the alchemical journey, that they could transform, that they could break free from society's norms and find their own inner wisdom and strength? Was Carroll striking that proverbial match that ultimately lights the flame, a flame that forever would burn as awareness, steeped deeply in the energies of the sacred feminine? And what about now? What about today? Why now? Why revisit Alice in this time of transformation? In a world where women are once again questioning old structures, seeking more autonomy, equality, and freedom, Alice stands as a timeless symbol of what is possible when we break free from the limitations imposed upon us. Carroll's Alice was not just a story to entertain. It was a beacon for women everywhere and in any era of time. This is a poignant reminder that we are all alchemists, capable of transforming ourselves, of questioning the world, of embracing the chaos that leads to enlightenment. It was a subtle call to be awakened. It was a claim to have our own power, and is to know that, like Alice, we can navigate the madness of the world and emerge transformed, whole, and empowered. In fact, many of the characters, like the Mad Hatter, the White Rabbit, and the Caterpillar, these are all male figures whose roles are vital in shaping Alice's path of discovery. Now, this is where I want to take one more pause and remind all of us that Alice's story isn't just for women. While Alice herself represents the quest of self-discovery, questioning authority, and embracing transformation, the male characters in her world offer their own wisdom and their challenges and their guidance. In fact, it is the male characters that help Alice realize her strength and power in a world that constantly is challenging her of her perception and of her reality. How refreshing is that? Because what is so powerful about these characters is that while Alice is undoubtedly the female protagonist, the wisdom, the guidance, and the challenges she receives are from these male characters who show us that the transformation knows no gender. Whether it's Alice facing against the Queen of Hearts, or finding clarity in the words of the Mad Hatter, the White Rabbit, or the Caterpillar, the journey is universal. Alice speaks to the shared experience of self-discovery, transformation, and the willingness to break from what is holding us back. This is something that just is as relevant to men as it is to women. In fact, it's relevant for Earth as one. So as we explore Alice's world together, let us remember that her transformation isn't isolated to just one gender. In fact, each character, male and female, offers valuable lessons for us all, reinforcing the truth that the path of growth, awakening, and personal alchemy is open to everyone. Hey, thanks for joining me here as we talk about Lewis and Alice and all of these perspectives in between. If you have found this video and our Alice series meaningful, please share it with others, and let's continue to awaken the alchemist within all of us. Remember, the journey to transformation is in your hands. Step forward and help Earth ascend.